Good morning. You're watching Morning at NTV. Time for us to take note. I promised last week that we would bring the conversation back into this week when we're talking about the International Day to End Impunity against, of course, people in the line of work who are supposed to be bringing the information to you, and that is journalists. And in studio that day, I had two guests. One is back, and that is a seasoned journalist, Wokulira Sebagala. Good morning.
Good morning,
You're back.
Yeah, thank
Many
you so
might be
much.
paying attention, saying, "What are they're about to get themselves in trouble." I told you, journalists never keep quiet.
Oh.
But I took a screenshot of this. It was on Twitter, and there was a child who was sort of protesting, holding a placard, and it says, "First they came for the journalists. We don't know what happened after that."
Exactly. Good morning, viewers. It's very problematic as far as protecting our job is concerned. But at the same time, those who really consume the media, probably they're not very close to defending the space, because this space we're occupying is really for everyone is good, and we are just messengers. Yeah. So if really we want to occupy the space and someone is saying no, get out of the space, then those who are consuming our product, the news, who reads newspapers, who watch NTV, who listen to the radio, even those who really get to social media and get information. I mean, this is the space which belongs to everybody, and they are supposed to be seen defending the space, because once we are no more, they will never get in, any news in their living rooms. So I think it's everyone's responsibility to protect this, because it is this that empowers them to hold their government accountable, to make decisions either
for themselves, even in the family.
From an informed point of view, you know. So if really there is no information, I mean, everybody is going to be denied right to participate, want to speak out, but at the same time, even to demand whatever they're entitled for.
I think that's something new that I'm hearing versus what we talked about the last time you were here. It's not just we're saying government should protect, the police should protect. Now you're saying everyone, even you who's consuming.
Exactly. No, there are responsibilities that are really leveled.
Yes.
For instance, the government really is supposed really to ensure that rights and freedoms are protected.
Okay, so that's government.
Yes, that is the government. They are duty bearers, of course. Like, I mean, when I'm a journalist, this is really the space, and I must defend it.
Yes.
But also the consumers must be really seen, you know, because they're the users. Ours, we're just really making this space, exactly, making the space flourishing with information. One picks whatever they want. So that actually they are helping, they're being helped to know what is going on, but at the same time to know, even to plan what they want. If really there is any process, they're able to participate and say, but last year, the media reported ABCD, which is really accurate, and said, such and such happened, we want an improvement. So if NTV comes today and say Bududa landslide happened because of negligence, the people in Bududa are able to say, no, you've delayed to implement ABCD, we want change, we're not going back, either you relocate us, you know,
somewhere else.
That really comes from an informed point of view. So, which of course, the media, that's why we are called the fourth estate. Because we are able to watch, we are able to inform. If it requires really some education and then entertainment, yeah, it comes in. But the most important part is making people informed. That's why we call ourselves informed friends. So
let's start from the journalists, because there's the journalists themselves who we're trying to protect. Then there's the government, and then the consumers who are at different levels. So I think I was insisting on us starting with the conversation of journalists, because it's not just Uganda, especially countries that have had maybe sensitive politics or security issues. There's a thin line. There's a thin line of neutrality probably never exists. The last time we heard Nicholas Opio said neutral for who? You can't be neutral.
Well, I had a different view though. I had a different view.
You believe we can be neutral?
Yes, we can at a particular, some percentage.
Should we be neutral? Is our profession
when we're
supposed to be
executing
neutral?
our work, we must be neutral.
We can't pick sides.
No. Because there we are really giving up on our responsibility to inform. Because if really the information you are giving has been tainted or indoctrinated, it means that actually somebody will not be able to get what he or she is entitled for. So that's why I'm saying duty bearers, rights holders, at the same time, even the consumers are right consumers, right holders, because they consume what we give. But because we're on the front line, they are supposed to be behind us. If the government is saying, no, I think this should stop, people should say, no, we want an independent and free media. So that really makes it really that they are people checking on the government, we are checking the government, we're also telling the government where the wrong is, but even we're also telling people behind us and say, this is what is happening, please, you have the right to demand ABCD.
Okay. So, for example, when I was doing some research on this, we were in Brussels for the International Journalists Association, and they were talking about journalism and good governance. Yeah. And they're saying there's a thin line because you sometimes, for example, they gave the example of the Rwanda genocide. Yeah. They said the media was used. They used the platforms of the media to give hate messages. And they said the answer should have been using the same media to give kindness messages. And they said that ideally is taking a side. Shouldn't you just give the information that is there, whether bad or good, and people make their decision? They said no, you should pick good messages. So people, you're sort of supposed to make people's decisions for them.
Exactly.
You understand that if there's the Budunda landslides, you're not necessarily going to report everything and anything. You're going to pick what is valuable
and important.
In picking value, isn't that where our problem is?
I should say because picking the value, he or she is responsible. Where are you picking that valued content from? He or she is being checked.
Isn't that what we call an angle?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's an angle. It's an angle. If really you're going for something and the person who's responsible to ensure that things are done in the right way, trust me, he or she gets offended because you're checking. People don't like to be checked. So for that is where the problem comes from. But even when we really pick it from Rwanda incident, how the media, people talk about how media was used, trust me, when the situation degenerates, even the professional degenerates. Why? Because everybody is on his own. That's why I'm saying we must really work. I mean, we work for everyone's good.
Yes.
Well, whoever occupies the public space, whoever is in the media, the public, I think we are supposed to be doing for the public good. But if the public good has been taken
it's out of hand.
Exactly. When it gets out of hand, that's really what happens.
Those are pictures from one of the protests where a journalist from the Reuters, if I'm not mistaken,
Akena was beaten.
Yeah, was actually really beaten. And the discussion then said, he's been in the business for a long time. He knows what he's doing.
True.
And they said that, from such examples, because this is not the only example, obviously. It's an example that people were focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this, there is a lot happening. As we speak now, there are about more than a dozen of journalists who have been blacklisted to be beaten or killed in southern Uganda. That is Masaka Rakai. And they ask, okay, so when they wrote these notes, they went on distributing around.
Okay.
There are many journalists who have been killed in Uganda, but there are also those that actually have faced it rough. They have been subjected to incommunicado detention, but at the same time, they are still really battling with different cases in courts. So all this kind of information to us does not really favor us to do our work. It does not, because one, many get threatened and they happen to run away from their responsibility. If the state does not really protect the media, you find that the victims in there, they believe that they've been betrayed by the government, and therefore, I believe they will negatively impact on how they deliver. Okay. If someone has been denied justice in courts of law or at police, what do you expect that person, he or she is going to write at the end of the day? Frustrations.
Yes.
So I think it's the responsibility of those occupying public spaces that they ensure public institutions like judiciary, police, DPP and others remain independent. Because what affects me will also affect others. If I'm unable to deliver as expected as a journalist, automatically the people that I'm serving, those that I'm watching over, I mean, literally, they're not going to get what they entitled.
They're getting work from a frustrated journalist who feels then. Okay.
And that will not really deliver on anything. True. That's why these conversations, you remember, I said, we need to have spaces where within newsrooms, we need to have these conversations on a daily basis.
Okay.
First of all, we need to prepare ourselves. You sending somebody to go and cover a protest. What security tips have you prepared?
Exactly.
Have you analyzed where the problem might come from? Because police has been on the top, and the military, they have been on top as the aggressors, for the last
human rights,
the tormentors of journalists. But since you already identified such that this
is the worst that could happen.
Exactly.
This is possible when we're walking into a riot to film this.
What you're supposed to do, plan. When you see things are getting worse, please withdraw. Let us know. And within the newsroom, there must be really somebody responsible to supervise or to monitor those who have gone to the field and what is happening to them. And if it requires evacuation, it is done immediately. But of course, that.
I was about to say, when would my leader read evacuation moments? Is it when the guns, people are blaring bullets up in the sky? Is it when the tear gas is hit? Because if the tear gas is hit and I run, I'll never deliver a story.
Well, yes, we are even taught when we are at universities or colleges, we are taught that there is no piece of news which is important than anyone's life.
That's true.
But the person who's responsible to supervise or to monitor my situation or my security on the ground, he or she must have the requisite knowledge to be able to draw a conclusion that no, this is not safe.
Yeah,
I must withdraw this person. Or in developed world, when things are getting worse, they send in drones and then they withdraw the human.
So you still get footage?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
And then you make sure that your team is secure. Because even if you have a tag, even if you have a jacket, even if you have a whatever.
We saw Akena's situation. He had a camera.
He had I mean, yes. Akena, I know him. He has everything. It requires somebody
that shows this is a journalist.
Because he has also been in the civil war. He has been in northern Uganda. He has been in Congo. So, I mean, does not help.
Yeah.
But really, we must prepare ourselves. Because the more we do not attend to this challenge, our security is very important. And people are talking about the high turnover of media. People think it's about the pay. Literally, no. There are those who are being called to serve. And really being in media is just serving. But when you cannot guarantee your safety, your security, and looking behind and say, oh, I have a responsibility over a young family, so let me withdraw. Someone leaves the profession, he or she goes for something else. So that really contributes really immensely on the high turnover. So for me, that's why I'm saying that newsrooms, we need to have these conversations. But at the same time, we need to have a national institution which is supposed to really, like you see the lawyers, when they have Uganda Law Society, I think we also need to have our own. Whether it is, because it's supposed to be really ours that is supposed to look into our issues.
Because I know that there's associations here and there, some groups here and there. And
true.
Yeah.
They are there. But when you look at for the last 7 years, we had, we came up with Independent Media Council of Uganda, which literally equivalent of Uganda Law Society, where the leaders was Honorable Chintu Musoke and a few others who've been reading the media. And we said issues that affect us, issues that, of course, we feel that we've not delivered. We are able to get into our own room.
You also check yourselves.
Exactly.
That's key.
But it wasn't really supported.
By the journalists themselves?
No, I think we had the support from journalists.
Okay.
But the conversations and engagements we had with the government, they were like, but we have a media council. They're saying, yes, we have the media council, which is responsible for licensing.
So you're saying the media, you don't want a council or an initiative that is run by government. You want independent.
No, because we cannot trust government. Depending on what we've seen, I think journalists need to self-regulate themselves because they know the challenges.
They're on ground.
And exactly. But at the same time, they are also able to buy a leaf from what is happening elsewhere and say, okay, this has been replicated in Kenya. This has been done in Ethiopia. We're not talking about now Europe or America. We're talking about
next
Africa.
Door.
Exactly. We're talking about that and say, okay, what do we do? How do we get out? Because context really change. But there is nothing like that. So the Independent Media Council of Uganda died. It remained in books, and but the media, even the Media Council, which is being referred to as its powers, has been again taken over by Uganda Media Center, and they're like, okay, there's this duplication, but then where? But the most important part is, I think, the seniors, the veterans, the juniors, the progressive ones. I think we need to rethink again and say what is important to us, whether the government likes it or not. Because even those who are being offended by the media, apart from going to court, where else do they go? They are going to the Media Council. But the Media Council is going to just to pass a judgment and say, you did this.
You're wrong.
You already judged. But here, if the media really buys into this, our own self-regulation, I think they will bring in complaints, which complaints help us. One, to build our career. 2, to build the public trust. 3, to be able to deliver on what we expected to do, even the government.
So you know where to go to and say, this story was written about me, the facts were not checked.
Exactly.
And this is my side of the story. The journalist is sat down,
yep.
and you check that, and everybody, instead of saying, let me go to court, let me go to government, let me go to police, and before you know it...
Trust me, that is the thing. That is the thing.
It's what's happening.
Yeah, that's
today.
what is really happening. And for me, it doesn't really help the profession to grow. But the profession will be left even for others who have never even never went to study journalism to manage it. Because really, if you're really being managed by somebody who is not even a profession, then what do you expect? He or she will be able to deliver on the appointing authority, and that is all.
Okay.
Nothing much.
Is there a possibility, because again, we're not doing a case of Uganda only, because it's not like only Uganda has journalists who are being, you know, whose rights are being abused. It's a world of conversation. But do you feel like there's a possibility of journalists having those actual safe spaces where they can do their work without being pinched here and there, without being told or gagged and saying, this is out of bounds. You can share this part of the story, but not this part of the story. Because, you know, journalists have an itch. The minute you said, don't turn here,
they will actually ask why.
They'll abandon everything and
will ask
turn
why.
there.
True. We used to have that. Spaces that were really non-political. But they have also degenerated. I remember one of the journalists who was covering lifestyle news at New Vision. It was Det Kakebe. He was really a reporter of concerts, whatever. So he was hit with a bottle of beer, and he contracted tetanus. And
I do remember that story.
Oh, yes. But that also has a reason, because what the leaders have been speaking about the media, calling them saboteurs, calling them vultures, calling them number of things, it instigates violence and hatred. So
somebody sees me pointing a camera there, I'm an enemy.
An enemy. And that such a statement really has a long-term effect. If a leader, for instance, if the president has called us a number of things, if the president really speaks to the nation and starts blinding the media the way he has been doing so, what do you expect a villager, somebody deep in the village, to look at you? Because then we had like somebody who's covering agriculture, probably that is safer. Somebody who's maybe covering economic news, maybe that is a little bit. They are not being covered in demonstration and so on and so forth. But even those ones, people think that these vultures, these so-called saboteurs must be dealt with. There's
no category that is safe.
No.
I think you've made a lot of sense. You said that there's levels to this. There's the government, there's the consumers of it. I think also, while we're winding up, I want you to, do you think the time factor in sense of turning out information, because I think it used to be that you're going to wait in the morning and look at a newspaper. Or watch the news at a certain time and a certain moment. Now, somebody just goes on Twitter and
gets everything.
Where are you lying more on? Is it a disadvantage to the journalist or an advantage, in the sense that if you're blocking here, I have somewhere else to put this information out? Or in the sense of also, is it a disadvantage that people are now putting out information that in our going away to fact check and take our time, we're at a disadvantage?
Yeah, but thank you, Flavia. I think this is really an important aspect that we need to reflect on as well, because I have been in America, I've been in Europe, where I've seen big international newspapers thinking about like Guardian and others, thinking about phasing out
digital
printing, then go digital. But remember, citizen journalism cannot be equated to professional journalists because I mean, we are professionals. We must really check out our facts correct. We must really balance. We are supposed to be really so that whether the coming of technology is threatening us, to us, we've got now to find a way of how best we can take advantage of technology.
Yes.
If something comes from NTV social platforms, for instance, either Facebook or Twitter, and say, developing story, such and such has happened. Even a citizen journalist really write something. Those who are looking for more details will always wait for NTV. But the so-called breaking, I mean, we know the breaking news is more revealing and you know, motivating as a journalist. But I think we've got to understand that the coming of the new or the technology things are the context is changing. But how do we use them for our own advantage?
Yes.
Because even if really you run propaganda, you will not be a differentiation between the citizen journalists and the professional ones. But I also believe that the coming of technology gives us a leverage. One, as a freelance journalist, I have learned that if I send a story, for instance, NTV or Daily Monitor or East Africa, and they do not take it, or New Vision, I have my blog. You
still have a platform.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. We're pressed for time, but I think the biggest takeout of all of this, he's made sense and say this whole media and good governance or questions of journalism and human rights, it's not just the job of just journalists or just the government or just the police. Every single one of us, especially those who consume this news or this information, you should question why these people are not given safe spaces to actually do their job. Thank you for your time so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Sewagala this morning. That's it for Morning at 10 TV. Do have yourselves a good day.